My friends, hello and welcome to Perfect Dark SpeedLore, the series where we take a look at one stage from the classic Nintendo 64 game Perfect Dark and talk about the speedrunning world records, the progression, the strategies, and the players that made it all happen. And tonight we're looking at another one of the game's bonus levels, Mayan SOS Agent. And to help me out, as always, our co-host, Perfect Dark champion, and absolute legend himself, Karl Jobst. Welcome, Karl.
Hello. Hello.
It's going to be an epic speedlore tonight. We have a lot of cool runs to get to. And, you certainly know a lot about this stage. You've played it for many, many years over time, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time playing this stage?
To tell you the truth, no, I can't remember the first time I played Perfect Dark or GoldenEye. It was so long ago.
Wow.
Okay, it's kind of not relevant at all. The first time I played GoldenEye, I had no idea what I was doing, and I turned the game off because I was clueless on how to even play it. Random tangent story. But Perfect Dark, I think I can't even remember anything about it. It was just too long ago.
You know, similarly, I was very anti-trendy, so I didn't want to play GoldenEye or Ocarina of Time when everyone was excited playing these games in the 90s. I was like, oh, that's all the cool kids are doing it. I don't want to do it. And then when I finally gave in, of course, they're amazing games that changed the world forever. And there's certainly some speedruns in here that changed Perfect Dark speedrunning forever. And we're going to get to them tonight. So let's talk about Mayan SOS Agent. So it's the second bonus mission. You get it by beating the entire game up to that point on Special Agent, is that correct?
That is correct.
And like the last Perfect Dark Speedlore episode, you play again as a Mayan, a gray alien, and so your health is pretty low as well.
Yes, very low health. Also, the alien controls that's way more sensitive than Joanna. So you turn way quicker. It's a lot harder to play. Both Mayan and War are both really, really difficult to control.
That is interesting how they even adjusted the controls to be different, which is pretty cool. So, should we get to this run here? And there's one objective: activate distress signal, and it's pretty straightforward, right? You just got to get to the end of the level and press a computer.
Yeah, extremely straightforward. Nothing to do. It's just a point A to point B kind of level. So you get to the end and you press B on the computer at the end, which you'll see, and that's all you have to do.
Cool, let's give it a watch. And so this is an example run you recorded some point not too long ago.
Yeah. So you're unarmed, right? So this guy pulls out a gun, which you can disarm.
Is that the only way out of that room, by blowing up that
No,
bed?
you can go around the long way and open some doors, and I probably should have done that, but you can also just blow up that thing,
Cool.
obviously, to get out.
And that's probably something people figured out in 1999, or 2000. Well,
Oh yeah, that's always been the strategy.
that's
for sure.
level 1 speedrun thinking. And,
Yeah.
And so you're just strafing your way through the level.
Yep. You'll get familiar with the environments and the rooms and everything like this. But for this run, yeah, I am strafing past everyone just to make the example run a bit quicker and show you the level and everything. That hole right there requires you to double duck.
Yeah,
So
which
you have to duck down to the lowest level.
is there another way to get to this area without going through that hole?
No, that hole is the only way.
So you have to know about double ducking in order to beat this mission.
Yes.
And it's possible you would get to this point in the game without having known that.
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, probably. I think this is. Oh, there's a couple of places in the game where you have to duck. Actually, so there's one on airbase on the Perfect Agent difficulty. So I'll just there's two lifts in this level. The first one we already have been through. That's a very large lift.
Yep.
And there's this second lift here, and if we go back, actually just rewind it, because you'll notice that when I got to this lift,
I was gonna say we'll watch the run play play its course, and we'll go take a look at the 2 lifts. And here we go. There's the computer. Press B, and look at that. What an epic mission. Objective 1 completed. The ending cutscene is
the rule of this level. Yeah, the rule of this level is you have to throw the proxy dragon so it blows up the guards in the cutscene.
Yeah, it's obviously not an official rule, but getting the sway cutscenes is what everybody wants. Okay, so this is the first lift here. And
yeah, this is the first lift.
Yeah, so what's the deal with it?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. It just so happens that with the speedruns, the lift happens to time up where it's sort of just opening or kind of open when you get there. So that's good. That's pretty standard. The second lift, though, is very interesting. It's like unique. So we'll keep going to the second one.
Well, this one, what I'm seeing is like the door's kind of closing, and you're not really affecting it. So you kind of have to hope that it closes. Like, you know, I'm sure we're gonna find out there's ways to time the lift closing so you enter it just at the right moment, instead of having to wait for it to finish closing. Right. So that's certainly one thing to keep in mind. Here's the second lift.
Well, I mean, the thing about that lift, the first lift, is it opens a long way. So if you get there and it's really open, then you're gonna have to wait ages. So yeah, for that first lift in particular, you need to time it in some way so that it's either just opening or just closing. Otherwise, it's just going to be too slow. Yeah, with this second...
Yeah. I was going to say, or you're going to lose like 10 seconds on that one, because like...
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine if the lift was, instead of, like, right now it's closing. If it was going the other way, if it was opening at this moment, you'd have to wait like 10 seconds for it to go all the way open, then all the way closed again. So... Okay, here we go. The second lift. Here we go.
Yeah. Now, you see the second lift is closed. You cannot affect this lift. So, if, you know, for example, if it just closed when I got there and it was going down, or up maybe. I actually don't know if it goes up or down. It goes up. Okay, yeah. So if it was just going up and I just got there, I wouldn't be able to press B on the lift and call it back down. I would have to wait until it goes up, opens, wait for it to shut again, and then come back down. For whatever reason, this lift is just different to every other lift in the game, where you can't actually directly call it back down for some reason. So if the lift is shut, you just have to wait. There's like literally nothing you can do.
Yeah, so I mean, that's quite a level, and it'll be interesting to see how the records progress over time. Now, the first known record, as we've seen in Perfect Dark, this famous text-based page, shows a 158 by Snapdragon, and this is even before there were rankings or anything like that. This was just, you know, the boys hanging out and sharing the rivalries.
Yes.
And what's interesting with this now, with this progression, is that there's no videos for like the earliest records, which is kind of rare. So, Paragon, some of you guys will know from previous lores, had got a 152 in 2000, so cutting Snapdragon's 158 by 6 seconds. Then, a few months later, there was a 150 tied 3 ways by Paragon, Marshmallow, and Snapdragon. And then, Discombobulator, a future champion of the game, got a 147. What's interesting about that 147 though is Disco usually had videos of his runs, and this is like a rare exception, really. And
well, I mean, technically, videos back then were very hit and miss. No one was. I think the first person to really come out and really prove everything was Wouter in GoldenEye. I don't remember any of the Perfect Dark players really proving all of their times. It seemed to be just, you know, if they felt like it, or if, you know, the time they were going for was particularly difficult, then they would record. But yeah, all the top players back then, there was just plenty of times they didn't even bother recording.
Well, yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like, back then the internet was crap, and it was hard to make videos and everything. And especially in 2000, everyone's getting like world records almost daily. You don't want to have to make a video every time you're getting a PB, which is like every day back then, and it's so difficult. So it's kind of understandable in that regard.
No, that is true. It's like when the game is in its infancy, you're getting new records all the time, and so it is onerous, especially with the technology back then, to make 100. Like nowadays, you could make, if you're grinding for a time, you could make 100 videos a day of all your interesting runs. But back then, it'd be even harder. But it is even early. Like this record was set, in 2000 by Randy, which or January 2001. Which is early for one of his own records. That's like probably one of his first entrances to the game is the untied 147 on the stage. Now, while we don't have a video of that run, we do have a video of a similar strategy by our pal Sam Nile Fisher Case. Is that right? He's got this amazing 147 we're going to watch here and talk about sort of the first speedrun style run on the level.
Yeah, so this is basically the strategy as it was, and it's kind of irrelevant anyway. I mean, you'll see later on, but the strat is pretty standard and has been, was for a lot of years.
I see him avoid a back boost there by strafing a little bit out of the way.
Yeah, because in Perfect Dark boosts do impact you. It's not as intense as the GoldenEye boost, but in Perfect Dark, boosts definitely do count, especially on this level. Later on, when runs become a lot more tighter, the boosts start to play a much more important role. They're very slight, but they do add up the more you get.
So he's going to double duck here. Takes him a second.
Yeah, bit of trouble there. So you'll see, this was, he's waiting a long time here, right? But as you'll see later on, the second lift, it sort of ends up not making a difference because he has to wait for the second lift anyway. Because like I said, with the second lift, you can't call it down. So if it's either, it's open when you get there or you have to wait. And it was such that the second lift on, it's just not open. No matter how fast you are, you can't make it. So you have to wait for the next cycle. So even though he lost a lot of time at the beginning, he was still able to get there before the lift actually opened. And I'll actually mention too, lifts on NTSC are faster than on PAL. So I'm not sure the exact time losses, but we'll just say over the two lifts, there's a 2-second time loss just based on lift speeds between NTSC and PAL. So NTSC was always faster than PAL, and PAL ended up being even more slower than 2 seconds because you have to understand that even though you're not in the lift going up, while you're playing the rest of the level, the lift is still going up and down. So it's losing a second, every single cycle. So by the time you get there, it's like way slower. So you have to wait even longer. So even though the NTSC world record, the NTSC time was 147 since 2000, the PAL time was way slower. It's like in the low 150s. Yeah,
because if I recall, it's like when they programmed it, your running speed is pretty much equal. Even though like PAL, PAL's 25 frames per second, NTSC is 30 frames per second. So they were able to sync the running speed. You run as far in 25 frames on PAL as you do in 30 on NTSC, but they never corrected the lifts. So the lift needs 30 frames on PAL to go where it went at 30 frames on NTSC. So it needs 1.2 seconds to go the equivalent distance. So yeah, that's...
And it only seems to impact the acceleration. So when the lift gets to the top speed, it's fine, but it's just going from still to that top speed that is way slower. So it's just the acceleration part that's actually is where you lose the time.
So the thing is now, the next run I'm going to show is on PAL. So what exactly was sort of noticed that changed it from NTSC being 2 to 4 seconds faster to now all of a sudden PAL being the preferred version?
Yeah. So if we look at the very beginning of this 147,
yeah,
go back to 147, the very beginning.
Yeah.
Here's the opening cutscene, and you'll see that he's waiting out the entire cutscene, because the longer you have to wait the cutscene, the less time you'll have to wait for the second lift at the very end. Now, techniques and skill levels have been increasing, since the 2000s. So we're in mid kind of 2001 now. Players are generally better. I wasn't actually right there at the time this was found out, but Karnsky, who is the runner that got this next time, he was a very good PAL player, and there were actually a few very good PAL players in 2001. So we had Dark Avenger, who was the champion. He actually got to the champion just using PAL, his claim to fame. Karnsky was probably like the second best just PAL player, and there was another PAL player that we'll mention just after this one. But yeah, Karnsky was like the Dark Avenger, but just a tier lower. But he was still really good. And I mentioned that the PAL second lift was way slower than the NTSC one. And it turned out that it was just slow enough where if you cut the first cinema and go really fast to the second lift, the PAL players could actually make it a cycle earlier. So it ended up being that PAL became advantaged because there was no waiting anymore for the second lift. So you'll see in this run, he goes all the way to second lift, and the second lift is open when he gets there.
So it's almost like, because the lift cycle is slower on PAL, but if you cut the opening cutscene on PAL, it's like the timing of it is perfect so that you hit the slower cycle, yes, and it ends up being faster. Now, yes, the thing is actually, Karnsky would get a 143, a 4-second cut, but this time was never proven. There was no video of this. Another guy, CCK, tied the 143 and then lowered it to this run. So let's take a look. And this is now May 2001. It's pretty impressive that we have audio with this speed run. I'm pretty shocked. And yeah,
and this video actually is lacking. So it's not actually the stream or anything. It's just a really bad quality capture. So this video actually stutters.
Yeah.
But CCK, who got this time, was another PAL player. He didn't sort of play the full game. He was more of a PAL specialist. So he just focused on the levels that PAL was advantaged. So, I mean, some players who had PAL didn't want to play the whole game because NTSC, performs better on most of them. But he was really good on PAL levels, so he also did really well on Deep Sea. I remember he got some really good Deep Sea records as well. And obviously, Mayan at the time was advantaged on PAL, so he put some time into this one, and he did really well here.
Really
so you can
nice.
See that lift.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when he got to the left, it was barely opening, and he just had to close it on himself.
Cool. And I noticed his double crouch was also really good, much better than Sam's. I know Sam's watching, but yeah, you gotta learn from CCK and get that double crouch down. And so this lift,
yeah,
closed right on him, perfect timing. That was certainly very nice.
Exactly. It just so happens that with PAL, the first lift was sort of just timed right, so you just had to cruise to the first lift and it was just arriving when you got there. So that was kind of really lucky for PAL players.
It seems, and now 142, a really nice speed run, and I mean now we're 5 seconds ahead of the NTSC time, 147. So now PAL's really becoming advantaged.
Exactly.
There was a good question. Tubi in chat says, is CCK the best German player? And I did notice that when I was opening all the tabs for the lore, is that there really aren't too many German players in the Elite in Goldeneye or Perfect Dark. And so I was kind of like, wow, CCK's German. That's rare in the community. I wonder why perhaps Germans, really continental Europeans, don't play Goldeneye and Perfect Dark as much. It's kind of more rare there. You don't see, like, I guess Dutch you see, but like there's few French, German, no Italians as far as I know. So it is. But
the Germans do they seem more into Mario Kart and stuff like that?
Yeah, Mario Kart. Yeah. I mean, it's like, of the PAL players in Perfect Dark, you see a lot of Brits and Australians, and not too much else. So yeah, kind of crazy. But there's a cool 142 by CCK. And Yeah, so not long after this, he would claim a 141, but there'd be no video again. And that kind of
Mhm.
goes into what you were saying about how it's like very hit or miss whether or not there'd be a video. It's like, okay, you got a video of this untied, great. Then he gets an even better untied 2 months later, and there's no video. It just kind of,
Yeah, and I even did this as well. It's like you with this run, there was obvious areas of improvement. It wasn't like the cleanest run of all time or anything. So what players would used to do is they would be like, okay, I got this 142. It had like a mistake here and a mistake there, so I'm capable of getting a 141. So I don't need to prove that.
yeah, you're kind of basing your claim on the whole body of evidence around you as a player.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
Now, some players abused that.
well, I mean,
But I mean, most of them are probably legit, but some players definitely took advantage of that.
well, it's true. I think you have a pretty good video on your channel, Karl Jobst on YouTube, explaining that exact topic. So go check that out if you have a chance. Okay, the next player I'm going to introduce now. This is a very interesting fellow. A few people would claim 141 again without videos. So CCK got it. Then Dark Adventure and Karnsky also claim 141. And now the fourth person to claim 141 would have a video, and it was a gentleman named Shadow Zero. Shadow Zero, the best I can recall this gentleman is he was Swedish. Oh, that's another country that commonly plays GoldenEye Perfect Dark in Europe, Sweden. Swedish guy, and this run took place in 2001. But you know, when I joined in 2005, I remember almost all the interactions with Shadow Zero would be him in the Elite chat room making jokes about Din Mor, which means your mom in Swedish. And like that was his like entire character was just anything you would ask a question, oh, did you guys hear like you know, who said this? This is crazy. And he'd be like, Din Mor, no matter what, Din Mor, Din Mor, Din Mor. And
I haven't heard Din Mor for a long time, but Din Mor was massive. It was a massive meme back in those days.
It is crazy, these memes that like predate the widespread usage of the internet, but Din Mor certainly. I bet if you go to the Elite forums and search for Din Mor, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of posts. So, yeah, that's pretty. I mean, it's a cool thing to be reminded of the guy. Like in hindsight, it is kind of funny, even though you might think it was overdone at the time. So
it's very funny.
I know, funny dude. And sometimes that's the thing. It was so overdone that sometimes like it would like surpass the level of irony where it would actually be really funny because it'd be at a time when it's kind of unexpected or a very serious moment. And yeah, he played Perfect Dark, and he was never a star player, but he got some pretty good speedruns, and this was one of them. And this speedrun is so good, in fact, it's dedicated to our SpeedLore champion, Mr. Moxie. So check it out. SZ Shadow Zero's speedrun, dedicated to you, and let's take a look. That punch looked kind of slow off the first guy there, eh? Is that not too consequential?
Just come back to it quickly.
Just a touch.
Let me have a look here.
No?
That wasn't too bad. It was okay.
Okay, so you kind of have to wait. Oh, that's right, because you kind of have to wait for him to step back and then start to pull the gun. Otherwise, you don't.
Yeah, you gotta wait for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
You have to wait for him.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, he's just unarmed, and then you don't get a weapon. That's right.
Yep. He's doing what I've never seen anyone else ever do, which is left strafe here. I think I watched this video yesterday, and his strafing choices were just so bizarre. He's like he looks the opposite way that I would look for everything. It's kind of crazy. I mean, left strafe here is really weird. It's kind of like jarring a little bit, but he does. You'll never see this again. It's all left strafe here. Pretty smooth hole and everything.
It's a swag strategy, the left strafe. I mean, I always like kind of putting a individual spin on my speedruns and doing a sort of strat or idea that no one else does, and hey, maybe that's what he was going for.
Yeah, and weird rail hugging there. Not sure. And then left again here.
You know what?
It's like really crazy.
Is it possible he was trying to like manipulate the RNG? Just is like, or is that not the thinking people would do in 2001?
I think it just depends how your brain's wired. I think some people's brains just feel comfortable doing things a certain way. You can't explain it. It's just inbuilt. This is overall pretty smooth. Not throwing the dragon. I'm not sure. It might have been me who introduced the dragon throw swag. We'll find out. We haven't seen it yet, have we?
Not
No
quite
one's gone
yet.
for it so far.
Well, I mean, you were pretty known for your watching the end cutscenes and playing around with that. So I think we will get to those in a bit. Now, before we move on here, I do want to point out that one of the guys who had the 141 back in the day was Dark Avenger. At least he claimed the 141. Now, in the previous Perfect Dark SpeedLore episode, we talked a bit about Dark Avenger as a guy who claimed a lot of records, and a lot of them weren't proven. And I kind of, jokingly said, like, oh, did he even play the game? Is there any evidence he played? And you know what? He actually watched that SpeedLore video, and he sent me, kind of an angry email, and probably rightfully so. And he said, hey, man, I played the game. For the time, nobody had all these proven records. And he pointed out that he had 11 proven records over his time. And there's still a few of them linked on his times page here. Looks like about 7 are still PBs of his. And he said, I'd appreciate basically if you could give me a shout out and say that, I was a champion and I had, a reasonable amount of proven times for that era. So, Dark Avenger, former champion of Perfect Dark, and there we have a few records, certainly, that he did indeed prove. Reasonable standards for that time. Do you remember anything about Dark Avenger in particular, other than him being the first first all PAL champion? And
yeah, I mean that's what he was all about, is being PAL only, and that was sort of his thing, his angle. I don't remember speaking to him much, honestly. Because, he was big in 2001. He was still around. I sort of really came back into Perfect Dark in 2002. That was like after lockdown was found, when I sort of came across to Perfect Dark. He was still around, but he wasn't really active like he was in 2001, so I didn't really get to be there and experience him in his full power. But yeah, he was all about just playing PAL, and he was very proud of the fact that he could become champion just using one console. He's like one of the only people to do that, except for the NTSC guys. But they're advantaged on everything anyway, so yeah.
Well, even when Boss would become champion in 2005, he didn't become champion until he used PAL to sort out his deep sea time. So yeah, certainly something that could only really happen back in this era, I would say, which is pretty wild. Yeah, okay, so there you go. Dark Avenger, that one's for you. So way to go on the 141 tied world record on Mayan SOS Agent. Okay, the next record we're going to show is one of yours from 2002. I guess you had enough with this 141 shenanigans. Now, was this one we're going to show the music or the other one?
Show the music on this bad boy, yeah.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite videos of all time, is this one.
Set on June 9, 2002. Let's watch and listen.
this. I was just sort of dabbling with Perfect Dark. I only had PAL at this point as well, so I could only really sort of pay more attention to the PAL levels. But yeah, it's just a way more smoother run. You'll notice that in the second lift, I wasn't building speed as well. And sort of like, even though I was always sort of behind the times. Oh, here we go. Oh, what?
And you cut the cutscene.
Why did I do that?
You weren't fully. Yeah, you weren't fully refined in the cutscene shenanigans quite yet.
I hadn't reached full cutscene skill level yet. Yeah, it was just a way smoother run. In the second lift there, I wasn't building speed. And for some reason, even though like building speed had been around in GoldenEye, and by building speed, I mean running against a wall or something to make sure that you have full speed, because it takes Bond and Joanna like 3 seconds to get up to full speed. So you can see here, I'm just like standing there, even though it was already established like a year ago that building speed was a thing. Like when Boss came into the ranks in 2002, he sort of really popularized building speed. So levels like Streets and Statue, where you have to wait for the objective to complete, he sort of, I don't know, he may have even invented the idea of just like strafing into the wall, just so you could take off quickly. Even though that kind of stuff was kind of known, I never really paid attention to that kind of stuff back in the day. I'm not really sure why, but it was a smooth run other than that. But you can still see this like glaring techniques that I could incorporate here and go faster.
Yeah, at least one notable point where you could have saved time. I mean, I was going to say, like, speedrunning was so different back then because it was like, you probably thought, oh, I can get 140 without this, or you undervalued how much time it saved, and that was just the way it was, you know? Yeah, so you had this 140. Disco, again, Randy, Discombobulator, would tie it a month later. And the thing that's curious with that is he had no video. He was from America, so he would play NTSC. Did he have PAL at the time?
Yes. Someone had PAL. So Randy's part of the Illinois crew. So in 2002, when did he retire? Yeah, in July. So in July 2002, even Paragon, who had been retired since 2001, he had like a week where everyone played PAL. It might have honestly even been during the Illinois meet. I think the Illinois meet was in 2002, and that had like massive names. Derek Clark was there, Randy, Paragon, Captain Zebo. There's some other guy, I can't remember his name. Dirk.
Yeah, Dirk. Yeah.
These are massive names. These are absolutely figureheads in the elite. And I remember in 2002, I was in love with the games and in love with speedrunning, and watching the Illinois meetup videos. They made videos and everything of the meetup, and that was just so amazing to watch. And it was like, it was my dream to be a part of like a group of people getting together and sharing in this passion, because I'm in Brisbane, Australia in 2002. Like, there's no one
within 1,000 miles.
I mean, I had like Adam Moore was there. He was a really big GoldenEye player, but nothing like this. I mean, nothing like those guys. They would like really go all out in their big meetups.
Yeah, I mean, we should really find a way to incorporate some of the Illinois footage into a SpeedLore sometime, because it was like, it really was one of the first like gaming speedrunning meets. It really might have been.
There's this epic, famous shot of like they're recording it. The footage is going down to the basement, and you see just like TVs everywhere, you know. And it was just so amazing to see.
Yeah, nowadays it's like, okay, so what? But like, imagine it's 2002. There's never been like a gaming meetup that's had videos of it taking place online. You know, this predates YouTube by 3 or 4 years. So
for speedrunning,
yeah,
it's very specific niche, like speedrunning meetups. I mean, that was like very, very very rare back then.
Yeah, so one of the people there had a PAL console somehow in 2002. Unbelievable.
It's really hard to set to play PAL on TV, so they use like a computer monitor or something.
Yeah, that's right. It is. It's harder to play PAL in North America than it is to play NTSC in Europe, as far as I know, based on the way the TV cycles work. And that's why I've never really had a good PAL setup going. But there you go. Discombobulator got the 140 tied Karl's record in mid 2002. And Karl, you said, you know what? I'm going to take my record back. Is that right? So let's watch this.
So now I've fully moved over to Gold to Perfect Dark now, because this is in October. So Lockdown came out in August. Everyone started looking down and that kind of crap. So I moved over to Perfect Dark. Was really hitting it hard, and skills really starting to improve now. So this is just way smoother.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a really good video about the discovery of Lookdown on YouTube, on the YouTube channel Karl Jobst, so you should go check that out if you haven't already. And yeah, I mean, it just looks like a much cleaner, and so you were a lot of people didn't want to do Lookdown and GoldenEye, and they moved to Perfect Dark, so I imagine at this time a lot of the Perfect Dark records improved significantly as a byproduct of people moving away from... Well, you almost fell off the catwalk there.
You do that, man. Code in that corner tight. I was even doing that back then. Yeah, my holes were always really good too. And you can see the left timing is really good.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that jump over the edge, the crack, that reminds me of like in Mario Kart when they're jumping over the cracks in Sherbert Land or Banshee Boardwalk. Yeah, very, exactly. Very calculated. I'm assuming this lift is going to be super clean.
Should be. In this run, I got a few back boosts, though, unfortunately, so it made it a little bit slower. Here, you can see I'm building speed in the lift, which is a huge time save. In Perfect Dark, building speed saves like half a second or something like that. It's massive.
Well, there's
lining up the swag.
Yeah. I just love the ending, and you know, if you hear the guards shout, they say grab a body bag, and like as they take you out, it's like so absurd. I used to joke that the game is rated M, mature, right? And so since Perfect Ace, who we'll get to in a bit, got most of his records when he was like 13 or 10 years old, that all those records should be removed from the rankings because he wasn't allowed to play the game at the time, right? And that was just kind of a trolly statement. But there you go, 139 set in October 2002, performed on PAL. And yeah, okay, the main difference was that you kept the full speed at the lift. And this would be a pretty good run. Interestingly, it would be tied over the next 2 years only by fellow Australians. Your Eliteness a year later, and then Funky Buddha and Jugador J3 in late 2004.
Pretty crazy. So it's only Aussies.
Only Aussies, yeah. Pretty. I know. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick here. It's like it is kind of crazy because, like I said, right, it's mostly the Aussies and the Brits who are playing PAL console speedruns there. Look at this, 139 SMYEFB J3.
Pretty crazy. We used to have really fun meetups back then.
Yeah,
so I was getting some fix with a couple of dudes. It would always be like, the three of us getting together here and there. Still good times.
Well, so that's exactly it. It's like, obviously you did have some meetups, hanging out with the guys, doing some speedruns. Now, the next speedrun we're going to show is by Jugador J3. And I think it's the first time we brought him up in a lore. I mean, I know he's like one of your good friends to this day. What can you say about him going into this speedrun?
Well, behind every strategy in Perfect Dark Jugador is like in some way related. Is one of these crazy strategy masterminds. Like some people just think outside the box, and Jugador J3 has made so many strategies. He's made even more strategies that people don't even use. For every like strategy that he implemented, there was like 3 other crazy out there, out of bounds or whatever, that he knows about and that he tried to implement into the game. I don't know. He's similar to Boss in that way, but just some people just can do this. Even as recently as 1 or 2 years ago, well, he implemented new strategies recently in the last couple of years in Perfect Dark. Crazy strategies that took off heaps of time, and he doesn't even like speedrun the game, and he hasn't speedrun the game in many years, but he still like knows a ton about it, and he can still kind of come up with all these crazy ideas. When I was playing Air Force One in 2016, he was like, "Oh yeah, check out these cool possible strategies that you can use," and he showed me videos of these crazy out of bounds that I had no idea about and stuff. But you notice right here, he's shooting his dragon. Now, it had been a strategy on Mayan Special Agent and Perfect Agent since 2001 to shoot there to call the lift, the first lift, because if you shoot there, a guard in the warehouse hears the bullets and then he calls the first lift down. But for whatever reason, it wasn't implemented. And you'll know that in the previous runs, when we get to the first lift, it was just arriving and opening. But now he called the lift earlier, and you can see the guards in there. So it just was closing as he ran in there, so it actually closed a little bit quicker.
Yeah, that was really nice timing. That was immaculate. And so just that shooting and so it wasn't like a strategy he invented from nothing. People have been doing it on the other difficulties, but he was the first to figure out how to make it work on Agent. And
yes.
Yeah, this is, that's looking like it's going to make a big difference here. And I was going to say, at the very end, there is this time here where you press the console and you're kind of sitting around waiting for it to like process and the level to complete. Can you die in this moment?
Yes, you can die. It's less of a thing on Agent, obviously. But on Perfect Agent, you can definitely die, and it is kind of scary. From hitting the console, it's 5 seconds until the level ends. Wow. I mean, look how bad that swag strat attempt was.
Yeah,
it takes skill to put that dragon in the right spot.
Yeah, he kind of threw it. I mean, he wanted to survive. He knew it was on untied pace, and he kind of threw it, and I mean, nothing consequential comes up.
You got to commit.
Yeah, well, you have to risk it for the biscuit, as they say. Okay, so he got this 1:38. Now, it would be tied again by Australian fellows Funky Buddha and Your Lateness a few months later, in February 2005. So again, an all Aussie record. And then, what would happen in February 2005?
I wouldn't have a clue. I actually can't remember what happened. I know the result of what happened, which is that I don't know what spurred me on or what made me try, but the thing is, in 2005 now, you're already playing the run.
Well,
okay, yeah.
You know, sure.
Yeah, okay, so 2005, technique has really improved. And if you compare the start of this run to the other runs, this is like way better.
Yeah, this looks like pro. This looks like speedrunning now. Modern speedrunning.
Yeah. Now, this run is different to the other runs that we played previously. This one's on NTSC. And you can notice right at the beginning of the level, I skipped the cinema. And I don't know what made me sort of play or try, but I felt like I could make the quickest cycle on NTSC that no one had ever made before. So now I'm quitting the cinema, I'm going extremely quickly. The problem with NTSC is this first lift here. It is extremely quick. So it's very hard to get to this first lift without it being really open. And as we mentioned before, if this lift is really open, it takes forever to close. So if you get there and the lift is really open, you're not going to make the second lift because you have to wait so long. But I managed to just, make the technique a little bit better, get there quicker, so that I could just barely make this second lift. So that lift was actually closing before I even got there. Like, I didn't press B on that; it just closed on me. And this was a pretty hard grind, honestly. Back at the, when I was going for it, it was a pretty big time. So this is the first time NTSC player had made the second lift a quicker cycle and was actually faster than the power runners.
I just remember 137, being heralded as this like legendary time in Perfect Dark history, and so it's kind of like we were saying. So originally the record was like 147 on NTSC on this lift cycle, where you kind of had to wait around a bit. Then if you skipped the cutscene and played PAL, you could get 140, 138 on the same cycle, but slowed down so you don't have to wait around as much.
A cycle earlier than the NTSC one.
That's right, and then now this one is even on the faster cycle, and yeah, I just remember like how hard. Like, I guess it's almost impossible to get an appreciation for how difficult it is to make this lift without playing yourself. But
should I have a spoiler alert? Can I add a spoiler alert? Okay, so since 2005, there have been 9 players that have made this faster cycle still on NTSC.
Wow, that's
it's still extremely hard.
When you put it that way, it's like actually really insane. Like, that's pretty wow. I had no idea it was only 9 players. That's pretty remarkable. Wow. No, I'm shocked. I'm completely shocked. I'm looking at the list of like players, and yeah, that's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. In 2004, 2005, I was probably like my best ever. Even though I didn't really play a lot, that was probably my peak. Was in 2004, 2005, definitely. I got some crazy stuff in those years.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like piece it all together, because you got this 137 a day after your Eliteness got 138. That's a tied record. So I'm wondering if you were kind of racing him to try to pwn him in any way. Is that possible?
I was playing it a while. I definitely would have been playing it before he got it. I had a lot of heartbreakers.
Well, I can imagine like there would have been times where this is the thing with speedrunning that a lot of people, there's like certain levels of depth to the top speedrunners, I would say, and when you're at the very peak, you're pushing bounds that like no one else has even seen yet. It's like you're the first person who probably got in the area of this lift with even a vision, a dream that you could get to it and get the faster cycle. And you probably saw it like barely close on you a dozen times or more. And you're like, oh, like I almost did it. And then finally you pulled it off on this run, which makes it pretty. It was amazing.
Pretty big. This one was pretty big.
No
one knew it was possible. I think no one even knew. It was a complete shock to everyone when it happened, because no one was even thinking about it.
I believe it, and yeah, like I said, I remember how big the record like seemed, like how big it was at the time, and okay, so a half a year later, Boss would tie the 137. A couple years later, Greg K, a Brazilian player, and Taka, a Japanese player, would tie 137. So the game's becoming a little bit more international now. So we have an Australian, an American, a Brazilian, and a Japanese runner all sharing the record. And then, of course, my friends, in 2007, who do you think shows up on this level? And this run we're going to see is truly remarkable. I can preemptively say it's truly remarkable. And it's so remarkable, in fact, that this run is dedicated to a SpeedLore champion, Alex P. Thanks for supporting on Patreon, Alex P. You're the SpeedLore champion of this speedrun, achieved by Perfect Ace in September 2007. And what's insane about this run, Karl? What's mad?
This is the 137 on PAL still. So Ace had not yet received NTSC. He was still getting everything on PAL. So as I mentioned, PAL loses 2 seconds just from the lifts. So this is a really, really fast run. So the technique in this run is like even better than the original 205 that I had. The thing about PAL though is that the first lift timing is sort of a little bit more optimal. So the first lift is probably a second slower. So it's opening later when you get there. Sorry, you have to skip.
Oh, the classic fake out. Hey,
just go halfway through the
okay,
next
sure.
one. Dropping the ball on that one.
Well, it's like
oldest trick in the book.
You set it up. Well, I know it's these old speedruns. Sometimes, they leave the failed run tacked on.
Yeah.
Or 30
so on my 137, because that first lift is really fast, it was sort of really open when I got there. It was open enough, like not enough, so I could close it and still make the second lift. But on PAL, you can see he even warps into the lift, So we were both sort of getting to the lift around the same time. But because the PAL first lift is slower, it was not open anywhere near as much. So it closed quicker. And then my 137 lift was really open, so I had to wait like 2 seconds for that to close. So he lost 2 seconds from the lifts, but he gained time because the first lift wasn't as open as the NTSC runs. So the holy grail, it would seem, for NTSC is to get there so quick that you can do what Ace did on the first lift and like barely get in there. And if you could do that, then you would gain 2 seconds over this run.
And you could maybe get a 135.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just wondering like how the lift cycles match up, because if you got there earlier on the first lift, 2 seconds earlier, would now you not be 2 seconds ahead, and so the second lift would take 2 more seconds to get to you, and then you wouldn't hit it with perfect timing?
Well, all you have to do is make sure it's open when you get there.
Oh, because
it's going to be open for like 5 seconds or something. So you got that window.
That's right. So while you can't call that lift, if the lift is a level up, pressing B doesn't do anything to bring it down. Mm-hmm. But if the door is wide open there, you can press B to close it on yourself.
Sorry, I didn't mention that. I definitely should have. If the doors are open at all, you can open and close them. As soon as the door's shut, you can't control the lift anymore.
And so you're hoping that you're in a zone of like 4 or 5 seconds where the door is basically wide open. I mean, maybe you could hope that it's closing, but wide open, boom. And that's why he pauses there to check if it's closing or if he has to close on himself. Yeah, okay. And I mean, that's 137 PAL. So it's like, as amazing as 137 NTSC was, the first of its kind, making the earlier lift cycle, 137 PAL was like even more unbelievable. Or what, more unbelievable or around equally unbelievable?
Now, as I mentioned, because the first lift on NTSC is quicker, so even if me and Ace get to the first lift at the same time, on NTSC, that first lift is open more. So I have to wait for it to close longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I follow.
We were kind of... the 137 here was kind of similar technique. I think Ace was really, really good. It might have been like a smidgen quicker if it is quicker, but I haven't really compared the two.
And I mean, here we're seeing October 07, the list of guys with 137. And yeah, that's like I say, five runners from 5 different countries holding the record. They're pretty amazing. And in late 07, of course, an event that would change Perfect Dark speedrunning forever. You could almost make a video on this event changed Perfect Dark speedrunning forever. You really could. This philanthropic event, Carathorn and Red Bull played online poker, grinded a few $100s, mailed Ace an NTSC console, and Ace is so good, so godly at the game. He got over 20 untied records in December 2007, and this would be one of them. And I'm hearing it is a right ear speedrun. So again, on Twitch or YouTube, you win some, you lose some. This will be corrected on YouTube, but we're getting a right ear run. And I mean, that's a really fast start. Like, this is now like full speed, all out.
Full speed with good boost ratio and everything.
Yeah.
So now you really got to start paying attention to the boost ratios. He got boosted there because the first lift on NTSC is really, really hard to get there quickly.
Now, why did he not shoot there like Jugador did? Is that because on NTSC you don't have
it doesn't work out like it does on PAL.
Okay.
For some reason. So he got boosted there. Very clean.
This is like closing now. Ooh. Barely squeezes through.
That was definitely, when Ace got this, that was by far the best first lift.
Yeah.
That we've seen.
Certainly the best of the night.
It was starting to get really fast now. This is when the technique is starting to get sort of as good as you can get. A back boost there.
Now, I think the door closed. Like, I heard the ding before he paused, so I think it was closing, and then he jumped in.
Okay, yeah.
He's going full speed.
A bit of time there. Luckily, he did, because you could see he missed that B press there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I had no idea that was the case.
Didn't risk it for the biscuit. Didn't go for the dragon throw. Very disappointing.
Well,
but insane run. So it's probably like the pace was probably high 136 just after the first lift. Then the lift might have been actually closing before he pressed B on it, so he saved a couple of tenths there. Then he lost like half a second on that very last door, but the run was fast enough to still get 136.
Unbelievable! Wow. I mean, that was noticeable, that missed door there. But it obviously is looking like, maybe with some dream 135 could happen. But this one was like insane because 137 when you got it on NTSC almost had this reputation that it's like a maxed record. Like, you're barely getting to lift on time. Like, you have to strafe so cleanly. Maybe some will understand the analogy. I think you told me back then that making the first lift was similar to like a Streets 113 pace in terms of like strafing ability, Well,
I mean, making that first lift fast enough to where it's not wide open and you lose like 5 seconds is extremely hard, man. So that's what it's all about. It's just that first half of that level, getting the speed. And with the first lift, it really seems to be like, you might be there 0.2 slower, but that 0.2 ends up costing you like a second because the left door is getting faster and faster as it opens. It's accelerating. So it gets, the later you get there, it's amplified because the lift door has to slow down for longer, and stuff like that. So being a few tenths slower to that first lift costs you like 1 or 2 seconds waiting for that lift to close again after that. So it's very, very, very tight to get there quick enough.
It magnifies each moment missed magnifies completely. And so for Ace to like drop it to 136 when 137 was already this pristine run was incredible. And so incredible, in fact, that the run would remain untied for nearly 3 years, which is pretty insane. That's crazy. 3 years. And it would be a player who we've never introduced before. This is a gentleman who would go on to become the champion of Perfect Dark. Cedric, a Japanese runner. Who would finally try to push Ace on Mayan SOS, and we'll take another look we'll take a look at his run, maybe get more insight on these 136s, And I gotta say, this run now is amazing. This was one of Cedric's signature runs on his rise to champion. So amazing, in fact, it's dedicated to our SpeedLore champion, Corey M. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Corey M. Check out this run by Cedric.
Can I call him Cedric?
Yeah, sure. Hey,
you guys Cedric, I'll say Cedric.
It's just a difference in dialect. And I gotta say, this is a left ear run. Again, this one's for you, YouTube, so there you go.
Yeah, Cedric was really good. And Cedric has, even now, some insane times. So, unfortunately, he hasn't really been active for a few years. But this guy's top tier. A couple of the Japanese runners really were some really, really great Perfect Dark players. And it's kind of interesting how GoldenEye doesn't really have the Japanese players, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
the impact. But Perfect Dark, for whatever reason, had a few Japanese players start playing the game, and they really, really did really well.
So that first lift looked a little bit less tight than Ace's first lift.
Yeah,
it was less tight. I'm imagining he just doesn't have the door botch on the end. And he almost dies.
Yeah, and he's getting tons of back boosts this run.
Wow.
Tons of back boosts.
No, Cedric's so good that he's still 5th. He's 1 point out of 4th, and he hasn't played in like 5 years.
Yeah.
I think he had to close the door on himself there too. I never really knew like what all went into this run in particular, so I'm certainly learning a lot about how this level's played. Yeah, really clean ending. Presses B. Ooh, that looked really risky to just tank the damage at the end there. Yeah, that was
seemed like he tried to proxy the dragon but didn't.
He like tried to die.
An attempt was made. You can see the secondary function pop up there for a second. Yeah, it's just hard. It's a hard swag strat to get for some. Okay, I'll tell you a story. On my Mayan Special Agent record that I got like in 2016, I was so nervous. I was trying to throw the dragon and I couldn't even do it. It's a really kind of laggy end and everything, and the nerves are there. So I can understand if you're trying to throw, for some reason, a menial task like this. It's just really difficult for some reason.
I mean, that's speedrunning for you. Is even when it's something that doesn't save time, it's just a swag strategy. It can be hard to execute everything you want to execute perfectly. And I mean, this is what's really, really crazy now. It's like, okay, Perfect Dark wasn't really all that thoroughly played for a couple of years. 2010 to 2015, 16, 17. It wasn't all that played. But Ace and Cedric would be the only two people with the 136 until 2016. I mean, that's kind of, Ace got it in 2007, Cedric in 2010, and for the next 5 years, no one would tie the 136. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. And it's not like there weren't good players around. There's definitely, there's some other really good players who still didn't get the 136 as well. It's always been difficult. It's always been difficult. Actually, Boss was saying today that when he got the tie the 137 originally, that was the longest Perfect Dark grind he's ever had for a single time.
Wow!
Just to get the 137, and all you need to do is sort of make the lift, a few times. Like, it's not, it exponentially gets harder and harder the more seconds you try to cut off the time. Like, because of the way the first lift works, you could be like 0.3 behind and only get 137 pace. You go 0.3 faster, and then you can gain another second, and then you're 0.3 faster, and you can gain another second again, just because of how the first lift works. So it's like really, really these small speed differences just sort of make a huge difference on the final time.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of, I'm no expert in billiards, in pool, but kind of reminds, like, that's what I'm picturing is, they say, like, okay, you angle a shot, and the way the ball's going to bounce, like, off all the walls and stuff, it's like everything is amplified exponentially the more and more times it bounces. I get the same impression when you're talking about that first lift entry, because Yeah, it's like on a 137, you could get it as it's kind of opened, hit the wall, come back and started to like, or it's closed, hit the wall, come back, start to reopen. You can ding it, close it, and get in there. But if you can squeeze in before it even hits the wall to close and closes on you, even though it's only like half a second faster, now you're saving like a full 3 seconds off that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really getting the vision now of what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I'm just going to skip ahead and look at the rankings in December 2016. So at this point, Greenunet has come along, a French runner. He has 136. You've tied 136 now, and almost got the untied sweep. That could be interesting. And Swiss has the 136. So these are good players. And what's interesting about this in particular is that Green, actually, when he got 136, he was hoarding for a Kapap project. I believe it was Kapap 2, which is, him, Luke, Mirror, a number of others all got together and hoarded a bunch of fun times and released them later on. And you actually got your 136 like 4 days after Green's, but you wouldn't have known that he had 136 at the time. So you would have thought you were the third person to get it, the first person in 6 years to get it, and in reality you had been beaten by 4 days by Greenunet, which is, pretty crazy.
And when that Kapap 2 was aired, and I saw the 136, that was very impactful on me. Very, very impactful. That made me want to play the level again. So I'd already gotten 136, but his run, I looked at it and I said, this level has to be played again, because on Green's 136 especially, I just remember like his first lift, like when Kapap and all that, when the unhoards happen, you don't know what the time's going to be. You know what I mean? You're sort of like watching the video.
Yeah, that's right.
In real time. And I saw the first lift, and I'm like, man, that's a really, really kind of open first lift. And when the time ended up being a 136, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
How can this still be the record?
I didn't have it queued up, but I'm going to put it on now. We're watching it. That is true. What you're saying about the Kapap is when people are, unhoarding their times, it's kind of like, the way they present it's always like, okay, here's a run by Green. Oh, it's Mayan. Oh, it's Maian Agent. Oh, he has 137. This must be a 136. Like, this is, but I'm not sure. And the excitement really builds up. And then you're like, well, okay, this run looked good. This part looked good. Oh, this part didn't look that good. Could it still be a 136? And exactly. I guess point out what you noticed, I guess, coming up right here, eh?
Yeah, it's just this first lift. It's already opening. I mean, it was really open.
So that's
if you compare that to the other runs, that was really open.
Yeah, I see. So if you got there half a second faster, just closing on him, this could have been a much better run.
Yeah. There's plenty of time to be saved if that lift wasn't. Even if, the first lift is even kind of random slightly. So you can get there the same pace over and over again, but it'll be like varying levels of open. So even if he wasn't faster, but if the lift was just opening a bit slower, this run would have been way faster. There's like still plenty of potential here.
Wow. And so you saw that potential and you decided I'm gonna play Mayan again.
Yeah.
And it also would help that if you were
when did Kapap when was that released?
I don't know when Kapap 2 was released, but that one probably was earlier than Kapap. Kapap 3 was October. So imagine this was like August. And we're now in December here. Swiss has tied the 136, but you have a chance at an untied sweep if you can go lower. And let's see a couple things let's watch this run from December 2016. And you're on Japanese version. Is there any reason for that?
Yeah. Japanese version can be a little bit smoother. Now, on the Japanese version of Perfect Dark, dead bodies fade out, which, if you are killing a lot of guards over the course of a run, it really lowers lag. But just to play it safe, I tend to play Japanese if there's no obvious differences between the versions, because I feel like it is a little bit smoother, just in general.
Yeah,
but it could be a myth, but that's how I feel anyway.
Well, I mean, the feel of a top, experienced veteran runner often has a lot of merit to it. Let's see this. Oh, so that was like barely opening a crack. That was a pretty insane lift. That's got to be a full second faster than Green's 136.
Yeah, so now we're really... I even warped that door kind of slightly, you know? So we're trying to get there just so it's like, just open a crack so you can walk through.
Oh! Unbelievable.
Yeah, that sucks, man. So the second lift is kind of weird. Yeah, lifts in Perfect Dark are kind of random for whatever reason. And this second lift can shut... There's like a 5-second window where it could just be, you know, vary on how fast it is. And it's actually... It's not as simple as just being fast enough to make sort of the open door. You have to be fast enough and get lucky enough where the lift is just like randomly slow enough to where it's still open. So I was playing around trying to go for 135, and I had about 15 runs like this. And this, like, you know, in a row. And this pace, if you compare the time targets or whatever, the lift actually shut at low 134 pace. It was actually closed at low 134 pace.
Yeah, so
that's the one.
You're slamming that 134. Let me take a look at Green's 136 and see. Or, okay, no, that was one. Oh yeah, sorry. So
go back.
Yeah. So you slammed it at a low 114. And Green's there, well, Green's in at a 115.5-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So you were at least, I would say, a full second faster than Green on this run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but because if the door was closing before you get there and you don't even have to press B...
That's true.
Then it can be even like half a second faster.
Yeah, I mean, again, you'll notice, like, here, like, Green presses B, now the door starts closing. It is possible to run straight in and the door's like Indiana Jones, and the door closes just behind you, and that's even faster. So, yeah, if you got in there, I can see now where almost 2 seconds could come from on that, compared to Green's run. Wow. And, here's another...
This is insane.
Okay, so this is another one of your runs from December 2016?
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't actually like that crazy, but I got a lot of boost and everything in this run, and it was just like really fast in general. I actually had another run that I don't think I linked, but the warp into the first lift was just insane. Some runs even I was getting where I got there too early. Yeah, so I literally had to reopen the lift and go back in there and have a look at the final time.
I'm expecting like a 137, but who knows? Wow, that was quite something.
If you look at the decimal, that's a 136.3.
Wow, and like, so imagine you're in the lift at that moment, like 115, and instead it's closing. It's like, yeah, I mean, clearly there was at least a full second lost, maybe more, and so this is a duplication of the 136 world record with all that going on.
Yeah,
that sucks. That's quite shocking.
It's sucked, man.
Wow. But we know you're Karl Jobst. We know that you're often undeterred by such challenges in speedrunning, and so you would carry on. And we're about to witness a speedrun achieved in December 2016. And I gotta say, this is the last speedrun of the night, and it's of course dedicated to our SpeedLore champion, 4-Day Bender. Thank you again for your support on Patreon, 4-Day Bender. Check out this. This is a truly remarkable speedrun, I would have to say. Mayan Agent 135. And yeah, what music did you use in this run? Because I mean, sadly we had. You know what? Should we just show the run with the music once through?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Yeah. Let's just watch this. Let's just watch this insane run.
I used the Divinals, Boys in Town.
Okay. Cool.
It's just a cool rock track that went well with the pace of the run and everything. Yes, this took me about, I don't know how long, it might have been like 2 weeks, and I had so many runs that was so good. And yeah, literally it's like 1 in 15 to get that second lift that's just randomly slow enough to be able to make it. So it's like tons of luck factors need to go right.
So you're
we probably didn't even really put enough emphasis on how hard it is to actually get a run. It's really hard.
Well, I know that's it always is tough in a speedlore to kind of that's why we show some of the fails, but it is tough to be like, until you play it yourself. I mean, like you said, only 9 people have ever even made the first lift timing on NTSC, and now you're hoping to not only make that but also have like a randomly slightly laggy door here that's closing as you enter it. And I mean, it's just that's why it took 6 years for anyone to match Ace and Cedric at 136.
Mm-hmm. That's probably why Ace didn't go for 135. I'm sure even the 136 is tough. I mean, a lot of people who went for 136 in 2016 had problems. Like, it's really harder than it looks.
Well, and there is a 135. That is a truly remarkable speedrun if I've ever seen one myself.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. I think there's a comment here. Oh, you can't quite see. This is a comment I made 2 years ago. It says, "This time is so hot, it is single-handedly responsible for climate change." I mean, that is a hell of a comment if I've ever seen one myself. Yeah, I would say that is a hot run. 135. Unmatched to this day.
Yeah, I'll just mention I didn't go for the drag and throw because I was trying to lower lag at the end. So instead of, that's why I ran into the corner and looked down, because it's like, it's sad that some things you got to do. But it was such a tight run. Like, if it was a low 135, I probably would have just gone for the drag and throw. But it was like literally a 135.9 something. So I just really tried to minimize any slowdown at the end.
The sacrifices you have to make sometimes for your untied world records, Not only do you have to dedicate your time and effort and mental fortitude, but also you have to sacrifice going for the swag strategy ending. And that 135 achieved December 2016. It would have gotten you an untied sweep. Pretty amazing. They're pretty rare to get untied sweeps in the modern state of Perfect Dark. Wow. Yeah, what was it like in that 135, seeing that pop up?
It's just a relief. It's just a relief. It sucks, man. It sucks, like, it's such a bad feeling, because when you're approaching that last lift and it's wide open and you're just saying, please, like, please don't close on my face like it had like so many times before. So you see it's open and then you're just like begging it not to close on your face. And when you hear that, that dong, like the lift closing sound, before you get there and you see it closing. It's like so heartbreaking. So it was just a terrible time having to go through that over and over again just to get this run. So I was more like relieved than anything. Finally.
And you said, you know what, we can't risk legging it up with the swag ending. Let's just play it cooling at the 135. And sometimes that's the coolest way to play it. You got to act like you've been there before. And wow. And so, you know, I see you say that the first lift was slightly more open than perfect.
Can I try and find a run here?
Yeah.
That was just ridiculous.
What was the best first lift? Was it Ace's 136?
That one was pretty good, yeah. That one was pretty good. It might still be the best.
Yeah, I just want to show while you look up that run, I just want to show to compare. Like Ace squeezes right through there, and on the Karl 135, it's pretty good. But you know, again, could be, you know, even that 0.1 faster lift entry can stack up to be even bigger time save. So maybe a 134 is still out there.
This is probably my best run ever. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Worst luck ever, sad face.
So this is probably just like overall, you can't really get much better than this. I get a boost there. I hope it's the run. It should be the run that I'm thinking of.
It must be. It must be.
Yeah, it must be. You get a boost there. 2 boosts. This is like insanely fast. Like the time targets here are just like absolutely ridiculous. Guards getting out of the way. This is open, that door there. It's like small details that I didn't mention, but it's like a little bit of RNG there.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, so that needed a warp. That was so tight that it needed a warp.
Unbelievable. I mean, this run looks magnificent.
Yeah, it's not going to get much better than this, honestly.
Oh, my dear.
Yeah, so look at the time on the lift there.
I mean, I can even, like, okay, so, let's see, like, right here, this is like a low, okay, 113.8 at that moment, and on your 135, it's like a, you can't quite make it out, 114.4, and so if this is a 113.8, that's 0.6 faster, and the door's closing as opposed to you having to close it yourself. And this could almost be 133 pace.
Well, the time that the lift actually shuts.
Yeah.
So what decimal does it actually shut?
114.
Yeah,
11.
so it actually shuts. That is 133 pace. That's like a 133.9.
Wow.
So obviously I can't make that, but if that lift shut half a second later, then yeah, that's 134. Like this is definitely 134 pace if you get the perfect, you know, lift close on you. But it's a ridiculous run. This is before I even got 135. Like, this is how insane the pace can be, but it's just so rare that you actually get everything that lines up.
So you could almost have skipped to 134.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I had a couple of runs that were possible 134 paces, like this one.
Well, it's like, even here, what if you didn't shoot that guard and you fully just strafed through, and could that have been maybe 0.1 or 0.05? Yeah. And
if he didn't, because I had to shoot him because his animation he was going to back boost me. But if he had a good animation, yeah, definitely.
I mean, even here, the way you strafe is like you're just going for it, and wow, that's insane.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. It's very upsetting going through that. I can't really voice how just annoying that is.
But I mean, still, it is worth pointing out that your 135 is still untied more than 2 years later. Only 4 others have 136, and only 9 people have ever made that first lift cycle, which is crazy. Who knows? Maybe now more people will be inspired to go for it and try to make that lift cycle. We'll see. We'll see what happens over the next little while on Mayan SOS Agent. Do you think now is time for some Q&A?
Yeah, we'll do Q&A, and I just want to say that I do hope it's it's a really, really fun level. Aside from the heartbreaks that you get, it's a really, really good level to play. It's very, very good. So I hope that some better players out there like Ace, some players who are really, really good. I hope someone pushes for the 134 at some point. I'd really love to see this level be perfected. And I think the world record should be 135. I'm not saying, sorry, not 135, 134. I'm not saying 134 is like overdue or easy, but it's just the run that I see in my head. And it would just be beautiful to see the 134 run manifested in real life. It would be a really good thing to see.
Well, could you not go for it yourself?
I could. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this level is it almost is a GoldenEye-ish level. Like, Perfect Dark and GoldenEye are so different in so many ways. But this level's like mostly strafing, a few kind of guard management, a few timing things. So it's one of those levels you can just... It's not overly complex like a lot of Perfect Dark levels, and so it really could be... The time could just be ripe to be squeezed out of it, and I think we'll see a 134 someday. It'll eventually happen.
Someday, definitely.
So yeah, let's see. Let's get to some Q&A. Let's see if you guys have any interesting questions about the level or SpeedLore. I see the lovely Doris is in chat spamming some Schwartz and eggplant emotes. Just how remarkable was that run? I mean, it was. I would call that run. I mean, that run was truly remarkable. Let's not sell it short, So
yeah. So Snapple asked, "What's the theoretical lowest?" Right now, it's looking like 133 probably. An absolutely perfect run. All luck factors going your way, boost and everything. It would be a 133.
Now, what if you could make the faster cycle on PAL? Like, is this even...
Well, that is the fastest cycle. I mean, you mean another cycle?
Yeah, like another cycle.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. I mean, with 133, you're basically... the lift timings are irrelevant. Like, you're not waiting for any lifts. So, the cycles become irrelevant. You're getting the first lift shot as soon as possible, like, in any kind of circumstance. So, yeah, power is always going to be 2 seconds slower than what you could do on NTSC, for sure.
Noosh asks, how many hours did the 135 take?
That was probably like 2 weeks grind. I might have been playing 5 hours, probably average a day. So what's that?
70 hours.
50 to 70 hours probably.
70s...
Which in Perfect Dark is like a lifetime.
Like 50 is about as like minimal as an Untied is going to take in this day and age. So like 70's pretty right. Am I going to give a teaser into what level the GoldenEye SpeedLore's on? I honestly I haven't even made up my mind yet, to be honest. So yeah, we'll have to find out in a week. Any plans to get acquainted with Turok 1 and 2? You showed some Turok footage in your last video, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I certainly have no plans to play them at any point. But
yeah, I think GoldenEye seems like a better alternative. If you're gonna play like an N64 first-person shooter, there seems to be, in my opinion, only like 2 real main choices, which is GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and all the other first-person shooters just seem to be, a tier below.
What's the TAS? You know what? I meant to look that up. I don't know that there is necessarily a TAS. But let's see.
Yeah, not really. I don't think there's a Perfect Dark Mayan Agent.
Yes, there's one on Perfect Agent, which is a 149. That's 5 years old, but that's 9 seconds faster than the record. But it's I'm sure the TS would be like at least 133, maybe lower. But it's a TS and it does all sorts of crazy stuff. What I was gonna say though, Karl, was like, is it not possible? We'll say, right? Okay, like 130, 133 is the theoretical max, unless I would say maybe some sort of clip might be found someday, like. Like
the Holy Grail skip of Mayan.
Yes, is
this, yeah.
So it's like clearly you can see, like we've watched all the runs, you have to jump down and go up the lift. If you could somehow like strafe against this wall, like that is like, that might be one of the Holy Grail strategies in all of Perfect Dark right now.
Yeah, it's actually possible to get over there. And on co-op, you actually do use that jump there, and you jump over the railing. In order to do it on co-op, you need to get shot. So you have like one person stands back and shoots you as you jump over, and you use the momentum of the boost to jump over there. I actually played around with that, and I just couldn't seem to get it. And Jugador J3 has also spent a lot of time looking at that as well. And yeah, it's just out of reach at the moment, but it would be pretty huge.
Yeah, so it's like he's at 46 seconds now. This is Green's run. And then when he crosses like the threshold over there, he's at 102. But there's 16 seconds he takes. It's like, would it be possible to land it and save like 14, 15 seconds? Even if it took 5 to set up, you're still saving an immense amount of time. That is like, and it's such a holy grail because of how easy it is to envision that jump,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could even maybe clip from further down the hallway. Instead of going into the hole, you sort of move down the hallway a little bit and find a way to clip. So if you pause here, see how you can keep going? Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't know, but if you could clip down there, you could save a lot of time as well.
You could get boosted through a crack in the wall or something like that. Who knows? Crazier things have been theorized and performed.
Yeah.
When will
Mr. Moxie was saying, he was saying something about baiting guards to open doors. There is actually one strategy that you can get one door open after the first lift. So when I leave the first lift, there's a door down the hallway, which leads into the big, sort of much larger room. There is actually a strategy that you can use which gets that door open sometimes. But these doors really don't cost too much time. So this door here, you can actually... Yeah, it's also a couple tents there.
Well, this is Green's run, actually.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that wasn't as fast as you could do that. But the problem with that strategy is when you alert guards, and it's the same in GoldenEye, whenever you alert guards, they lag the game out hard because whenever a guard goes from like idle to chasing Joanna or Bond, it takes up much more memory and stuff. So if you do use strategies to alert guards earlier so they open doors, it ends up being way laggier than it's actually worth. So I did look into that strategy a bit, but I ended up just not using it at all in the end.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, sometimes it just really, again, it's like a 0.2 time saver. It's not quite worth it when you're going, because you can get 134 without it, and maybe if you were pushing 133, it might be worth considering again.
Yeah.
When will you become dual champion, Karl? Lee wants to know.
Yeah. It seems further and further away because I'm getting more busy with YouTube and stuff. So
that's true.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, if my YouTube gets a lot bigger and then that's doing really well, and I have a choice to make, I know what I'll choose. It's not gonna be dual champ, but I'm still gonna keep streaming. I want to stream as much as I can while I work on the YouTube, and I'll still keep trying to PB in GoldenEye and slowly get there.
I know. I mean, that's the thing people ask me all the time. When am I going to come back to streaming and speedrunning? And I haven't speedrun in over a year because it's just yeah, making videos just feels so much more rewarding, is what it comes down to. And I know Sarandis wants to know the song in the 1080 intro. I mean, my buddy Carathorn made that song for that video, you know, so it's pretty cool. And he doesn't want it publicly out there quite yet. So, what's the most difficult mission in PD to speedrun? I mean, I would say Mayan SOS Perfect Agent is like the hardest to live in either game. What would you say, Karl?
Attack Ship Perfect Agent is pretty hard to live as well.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad. It's still pretty bad. Infiltration Perfect Agent used to be really bad as well, but Japanese version has the shield, so it becomes pretty easy. And the way I always look at it is there's never a hard mission. There's only ever like hard world records, and it's only relative to how good someone else has played the level. So you might get a level that's objectively sort of easy to play, but someone has grinded that level like a bunch and they've gotten some insane time. So the world record is actually very difficult, but the level's easy to play. And then you have a level like Mayan Perfect Agent, which is sort of terrible to play because you don't live, but the world record might be, you know, relatively weak. So yeah, it really depends on how much time other people have put into it.
Yeah, no, I try to explain that similarly as well. It's like, for us, you know, you're a top 10 speedrunner in GoldenEye or Perfect Dark. It's like beating Aztec 00 Agent or Mayan SOS Perfect Agent isn't the challenge. It's getting the world record. It's playing the level as good or better than anyone else has ever played it in history. And yeah, like there are some levels.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people forget, especially casual people. They're like, oh, you're doing a glitch, that's cheating or that's easy. And it's forgetting that the point of the level isn't to beat it or whatever. The point is to beat it faster than anyone else. So the glitches and beating the game is never the hard part. It's always doing it better than someone else. And that's the key. It's a competition at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I'm trying to come up with a good example. I mean, I guess in GoldenEye...
100 meter sprint.
Yeah. Anyone can run 100 meters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be in the Olympics.
Exactly.
So it's dumb to say, you know, I ran fast. So imagine if Usain Bolt ran 9 point something seconds, uploaded a video to YouTube, and someone's like, you just ran in a straight line, I can do that.
Yeah.
Completely ignoring the whole point.
That's a really good analogy. I mean, I was going to say something like Train Agent 57. Everyone knows this is like one of the most insane records in GoldenEye. A Train Agent is extremely easy to beat as a mission. Nobody who played through GoldenEye as a kid ever got stuck on Train Agent. But the records, I did. But the record's one of the best of all, right? So that's...
Yeah. No, I didn't know how to cut the floor. I didn't know what to do. So I had to ask someone.
Can you warp the second lift door? Like...
yeah, the thing is, there's not much lag there at all. And in order to warp, you need lag. So the first lift, there's a lot going on. It's a big open space, and you can't really avoid looking at a whole lot. So there's a lot of slowdown, so you can warp. But the second lift, you're in like a corner at the end of a hallway. There's like nothing around except just walls right on your face. So the game runs really smooth right there, so you can't really do a good warp there.
Can you make the game lag to try warping? Like, you can, but unless it's like a really insane warp, like say a Depot Agent type of warp, it's like usually not worth it. Especially if it's a warp to say like 0.1, lagging it is going to cost you more than 0.1, so it is a trade-off, right? And yeah, it's just not quite worth it. I think that about wraps it up. What do you think, Karl?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty cool look at Mayan SOS Agent, diving into the past history of the level. Thanks, guys, for watching. Thanks to all the SpeedLore legends for supporting on Patreon. Very kind of you always, and really makes it possible to keep doing these amazing SpeedLore episodes. Yeah, any last words, Karl, before we leave?
No, I kind of said my last words before when I was like, I hope someone plays this level and lures it. I hope we communicated the gist, and I hope it was easy for everyone to follow and sort of understand the level, as we went.
Yeah, I mean, I again, this is a level I not really ever played in Perfect Dark, and I really got the flow of it, especially with how the lifts are all working and how they're fussy throughout the course of the night. So I think a lot of the viewers could have taken that away as well. So there you have it. Mayan SOS Agent, thank you all for watching. And by the way, go subscribe to Karl Jobst on YouTube if you haven't already. Amazing videos. His learning curve in YouTube is the same or better than his learning curve in speedrunning. It's amazing to watch. So thank you all for hanging out, chatting, and enjoying this SpeedLore. We'll be back soon with another SpeedLore episode. So stay true, my friends, and we'll see you then. Good night.